Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, where an evangelical encounters the restoration. I'm your host, Steven Pynakker, and I want to just update the audience on a few things that have been happening here at the Pynakker household. Of course, many of you have been seeing the posts on both YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, in which I've been updating people on the status of my mother. My mom, last Friday, we admitted her into the emergency room because she had severe anemia. And they did some tests on her over the weekend, and turns out she had a baseball-sized tumor, cancerous tumor, growing inside of her. And we put the word out there, and we got tons of prayers from people throughout the world. People told us they're praying, and Mom and I can tell you that we felt the prayers as well. So we want to thank everybody for their thoughts and prayers during this difficult time. Of course, the last year and a half has been a very difficult time for Mom and I to begin with. And of course, we're going to talk about a difficult journey that an individual in our space has been on as well. Before we do that, I wanted to kind of just give people a few updates on things. There are some stories that I'm working on that I would have done if it, one, my mom wasn't sick, or two, this story with Michelle wasn't really big. But there are actually some things I want to let people know that there are people that are attempting to resurrect Richard Nygren again, and we all know that scandal from a couple of years ago. So I'm going to be addressing that. I also see that Chief Mitiga has made some interesting pronouncements lately that people have sent me clips on. I'm going to do some due diligence on that. Of course, I had the opportunity to meet Chief Mitiga at the General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ last month. Um, Also, apparently, there's a spat between my friends, my good friends at Mormonism Research Ministry, who are being threatened to be sued by Blake Ostler. What's that all about? Kind of crazy. So I just want to let know that we will be delving into these other stories that maybe are below the radar, but we will be talking about. But for today, I wanted to introduce to my audience a very special guest who I've recently gotten to know over the last day or so. And Karen Hyatt, she has her own YouTube channel, which we're going to talk about. But Karen is actually Michelle Brady Stone's producer, who does a lot of the editing and stuff like that. And you wanted to kind of come on and tell your story a little bit. And I just want to welcome you to the program. How are you doing today?
Thanks so much, Stephen. I really appreciate it. That was really a surprise, and I'm happy to be here. Very happy to be here.
That's great. And I just want to give people some background here. So there was an individual who earlier this week started uploading videos after Michelle pulled her content, uploaded a bunch of videos onto her channel. Okay. I want to make one thing very, very clear and clear the air on this because there's a lot of rumor and speculation going on around here. As far as I can tell, based on the word of this individual, and I have no reason to believe that she's not telling me the truth, she is not in cahoots with Michelle. She, as a matter of fact, did a lot of things, put up a lot of firewalls to prevent there even being a connection to Michelle. Okay. I want to make that very clear. And so this person, I asked them, what was the philosophy of what videos you were posting? And this individual said, I only posted videos in which showed and featured Michelle's original research. I felt it was really important that that gets out there, and I wanted to have a resource that people can go to access her original research. That was the thought. Now, this person I checked, as far as I know, still, apparently they have removed their stuff from their YouTube channel. I don't know if that's a permanent thing or what, but I just want to let people know that there was no conspiracy here of Michelle coordinating with this individual. Matter of fact, from my understanding, these two only had a brief conversation once, and that was it. Okay. So I just want to get that out there. But she was the person who said, you need to get in touch with Karen. Because she said, you know, Michelle has this large platform and reached a lot of people. But she said there are other resources out there, other YouTubers and podcasters that are also doing their research on this, and I feel it's really important that we get the word out on that. Now, again, this is the Switzerland of Mormonism. I'm neutral, but I do like to, like I say, all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews. And so I think it's really important that we feature these YouTubers that are also putting out this information, including yourself, Karen. And before we talk about your YouTube channel, let me just ask you, how is Michelle Brady Stone doing?
Better.
Okay.
That was really rough. It was really rough at first. Very, very rough. I mean, to take down, uh, I guess I won't say your life's work, but the intense work of the last several years. You know, I mean, she spends, you wouldn't believe how long she spends. She doesn't sleep much. And she spends so many hours a week just digging into every claim so that she can help shed light or show the other side to just every claim she can. So, she's got 168 plus videos on her channel that's now down. So it was very rough. It's you go through a grieving process. I mean, she was grieving for sure.
Yeah, and I watched Sunday's video and you could tell she was devastated. And you could really feel it. Now, I did reach out to Michelle, and it's understandable she hasn't gotten back to me, but I just want to let you know that you have been in my thoughts and prayers, Michelle. Sometimes in the past we've butted heads a little bit here and there, but I think we have a good mutual friendship of respect. And of course, I had you come on along with Cheryl Bruno to talk about the polygamy conference that was a great success, had a great turnout, and is definitely making some, and this is the thing, I'm very tight with, I'm a member of Mormon History Association and John Whitmer. I've given presentations to both groups. I'm friends with a ton of scholars, and I did get some flack in the past for having. They say you shouldn't be platforming these polygamy deniers, right? And my whole thing is actually you have need to understand this in a context. I said when they write the history of early 21st century Mormonism, they're going to have a chapter on this movement and most likely will feature Michelle Brady Stone. So I said, we can no longer ignore this. I think we actually need to document this history of a rising movement within the restoration. And that's how I approach it. And I think most scholars can understand that. But I sometimes think like it's important that, we have a lot of lay people out there who are doing their own research, and I don't think we should dismiss them because some of the best researchers in Mormonism have been lay people. Karen, like look at the work that you've done.
Exactly. Well, that's very sweet. That's far too generous to put me in there, but Lester Bush, he was not an accredited scholar, but he wrote about the priesthood ban and showed in a scholarly way. He wrote a 55, 60-page paper just in a scholarly manner showing that this was not from Joseph. The priesthood temple ban was not from Joseph. And um, you know, Kimball's son feels strongly that Spencer W. Kimball read that and made notes about it. So I don't think you can prove that. Ben Spackman talked about that once. It's not concrete, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that President Kimball, that was useful to him. And so on my I'm jumping the gun here, but I made a presentation, my video that I turned into a booklet. And what I put on the cover was a quote from Russell Nelson that says, "Good inspiration is based upon good information." It is awfully hard to be inspired if you're only looking at incorrect information. That's really, really hard. So it's just so disheartening to hear any historian, of course, anyone, but certainly historians say, oh, you shouldn't listen to that. You shouldn't listen to this or that. I mean, there's no excuse to say that. It makes no sense at all.
So what got you involved with Michelle?
Okay, so my background, I joined the church at 17, had a very, very rudimentary understanding of anything. I was a very immature 17-year-old, in my opinion, and basically only invited the missionaries back because one of them was of exceedingly fine workmanship, but he never came back. You know how they get transferred, so he had done his work anyway. So I ended up getting baptized, but it was after a long time listening to them. Not that I was weighing what they were saying. It wasn't that mature. It was just a aversion to getting my hair wet in front of people. Honestly, that is my level of foolish, immaturity at that time. But I felt strongly that God was not happy when I would tell them no. And so I finally got baptized. So that's the nutshell version of that. And it was later that I became converted to the gospel of Jesus Christ. So the Book of Mormon I knew was true. And I had a witness of that and of Joseph Smith. And I realized what a gem I had. So I thought, then I began to appreciate it. So fast forward, then, I mean, I'm aware of Doctrine and Covenants 132. It seems awful, and talks about destroying Emma if she doesn't, get on board with this polygamy thing and all these things. And it's disturbing, but it's scripture. What are you going to do? That's from God. It's scripture. So I thought, well, boy, that seems so messed up. But if it's from God, it's from God. And I had every confidence in God, complete implicit trust in him that I would never be sad, on the other side. So if this is a real thing, or if someday I have to live it, he's going to change my heart and help me understand something that I don't know, that I don't understand right now about polygamy. He will change me. So I went for decades believing that Joseph Smith was a prophet, that Joseph Smith was a polygamist, and that God loved me completely. So I had all those in my head at once for decades. And, there's times when it pops into your brain as a woman and you think, am I seriously going to have to share him sometime? Like, how does that even work? And so that level of disturbance, nothing that would ever be a big issue. But out of the blue, a few years ago, on my YouTube, uh, list, whatever, it pops up a video called First LDS Polygamist, Brigham or Joseph. What? I've never heard. Is there a question? That was an interesting question. So I had to look at it. And that video was by Rob Fotheringham. And his video was the catalyst for many, many, many people to open their eyes to the other side of this story. So I looked, and he had all the receipts. He showed you the documentation, and you're watching it going, I was never told that Brigham said this. I was never told that Joseph Smith said that. And it was shocking and just of the utmost importance if this is true. But how could it be? It couldn't be true. He didn't have any links to his sources, but you could see screenshots. So I'm there squinting at the little URL, right? Typing in that gibberish, X94, right? And I go to these pages, and they're real. They are legit. They're not taken out of context. He's not kidding. This is real history. And in 2 hours, my paradigm had changed. That made so much more sense to me. No, Joseph didn't do this. No, it was started later. It was started in Utah. It's a whole different story than we've been told. So that's basically how I had my mind changed on this. So after that, I watched videos by other people, and I happened onto Michelle's, and she had these very long form videos, as most of us know, and that wasn't really my cup of tea. So we would watch one occasionally. But at some point, I saw that she was having trouble posting her videos. Her son was very busy at some point, and at one point he wasn't home and it hadn't been posted and there was some problems. So I contacted her. I said, I can do that for you. So we got that. And so at some point, I just felt really inspired to ask her, do you want me to do this for you? Because I had made one little documentary ages ago, several years ago. So I had some skills, and I said, do you want me to do that? Yeah. So that's how I started helping her. We don't see eye to eye on everything, but most things for sure. And her work's so valuable. It's just, so I felt so privileged to be able to help her with her obviously inspired work.
So yeah, and then of course she burst on the scene there, and it's been an interesting journey. Let me ask you, just being associated with Michelle, what was it like for her when she started getting attacked, and then what was it like for you when you saw your friend being attacked, and did you ever get attacked for this?
No, I don't. I mean, people might now, you have more traction than anything I've done on my own, right? People just share mine by word of mouth and things like that. I don't, when you said I had a channel, that was pretty generous because I really only have the one video up on my channel. I'm more of a one and done, like, okay, here's the receipts, you guys, here's the side that you haven't seen. Like, it's super interesting. I'll get to your question in just a second, but it's interesting because a couple of historians have accused me of cherry picking or only showing one side of the story, which just makes me laugh so hard. I'm like, well, if I'm cherry picking, I'm picking the cherries that you guys left on the tree when you were cherry picking. So it's like, yeah. So my intent is not to show both sides. You can go to any Deseret book, any Mormon household library, and point to anything and find the traditional narrative. Not hard. I do not need to show that side. I need to show the side that you guys left out. So I feel like they paved a road, or they laid down a new road, but it's full of potholes. So I'm just filling the potholes. Like, here's what's missing so that it's a more smooth road and you can see the whole picture. So anyway, so Michelle, it's but she's out there, of course. She's just got thousands and thousands of people watching her stuff and aware of her, and she's has such a reach with all these. She's been doing it for 3 years, so um, yeah, it's really upsetting to see people attack when they haven't engaged, right? And I have a lot of sympathy for, like I said, they're very long form videos, and she's got 100 and 68 official ones plus dozens of others, so they're close to 200. And you don't have to watch all of that. That's too much to ask, but at least watch some and go dig into the sources that she gives, because there's not nothing. It's real. The sources are real, and it's been left out of our history by and large. If you read Saints, you're not going to find this stuff that Michelle's talking about. It's really important. So to see it dismissed and to see her attacked for advocating that Joseph told the truth is surreal. It's just been weird to all of us. We are living in the upside down. The day that you can say, I think Joseph told the truth, and you're forbidden from saying that, or else you have to be escorted out of the church that he started. It's very weird.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting just to hear that to hear this side of this, and yeah, and Michelle has been a lightning rod, no doubt. And but one of the things that we wanted to do was for people who are looking for resources, now that Michelle is no longer posting and has removed everything from her channel, I guess her website's still up though, right? Is that correct, Karen?
Yeah, she's got a website,
Okay.
132problems.org.
Okay.
And so that's great. There's some written stuff. There's still links to things if people want the links, that they're there, and so that's helpful. But the YouTube channel's down, and that was painful.
Yeah, and so I wanted to just point out a few different YouTubers out there and that are putting this out there. They don't have as many subscribers, as much reach as Michelle. So I was recommended that hey, let's at least discuss this. And so Karen, this is your YouTube channel. And I watched about 30 minutes of this, and then they announced the election of a new pope, so that kind of got in the way. But I want to say very interesting the first 30 minutes. This is a 2 hour, and you had recommended to me watch it on full speed, not not don't skip through it. You've done a lot of work, and you got 26,000 views, which is very impressive amount of views for a small channel. And so I wanted to point out to people, Karen Hyatt has her YouTube channel. Tell us a little bit about this documentary you put together.
So, like I said, Michelle's style appeals to a lot of people, obviously, right? The long form, talking in depth about certain things. But I would watch her things, and I would watch Rob Fotheringham's, and I would watch others, and I would think, wow, that was a long video, but there were some zingers in there that we really need people to see, and they need to not have to go
Uh,
through 2.5 hours to see these
okay.
serious zingers.
But so
And so
so
I
like so
thought,
like so like Mormon, you're like abridging
oh,
the
there you go. Oh, that's I like that. Not at all deserved, but love it. That's great. Exactly, though. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, here are the things that I find. So what I compiled were the things that I found most surprising and compelling and just important. The fact that, just throwing a couple out, the fact that Joseph Smith's journal entry of October 5th, 1843 says, no man shall have but one wife. All right. And after his death, some scribes under Brigham Young changed his journal to say almost the opposite, that it was totally allowable sometimes. And it was like, what? And the thing is, the historians know this, it's documented. They acknowledge that happened, but they say, but that's okay, because all those scribes were doing was changing his entry to reflect what he really thought and what he really meant. To me, that is just beyond irresponsible, because that's how, I mean, how dare you? Why can you say that? Why are you telling us what he was thinking when we have what he, not what he wrote, but what his scribe wrote for him in his journal? But it's right there during his life. So the historians are always cautioning, you know, lay members, right? You need to do good history. You need to um, tell the whole thing. You need to prioritize contemporary documents and not prioritize things from later. But the whole story of Joseph Smith's polygamy is later. It either comes from his enemies or people later, much, much later, 25 years after his death. That's not okay to prioritize those over the contemporaneous record.
Okay, so your documentary that you produced is called Woe Unto You Scribes, The Hidden History of Polygamy. And so for those of you who want to get like a just kind of a Cliff Notes version of all these stuff that's been put out here the last few years, this would be a good resource, maybe a good introduction to this movement. Would you agree to that, Karen?
It is. I've gotten the best feedback, very, very good feedback. My cousin was wondering, so I gave her your movie and now she gets it. It's just really, it's helpful. And I had divine help. I mean, I have to tell you, I had divine help for this. The subject is so big. And so to begin it, I'm just going to tell you how it kind of was to jump into this. It was like, okay, how do I do this? So I just kind of scribbled down, typed out real quick anything that would come to my mind that I could remember. Heber C. Kimball, I remember him saying, Joseph will say to us in the spirit world, here are thousands of wives, have all you want. That was something like that. And it's documented. Brigham married a woman named Augusta Cobb, who left her husband for him. That's not cool. Anyway, all these things, I just rattled them down real fast, cut them into little literal pieces of paper. Stephen, it was so scary. So I had a couple hundred of these and I just laid them out on the floor and grouped them by
Okay.
subject. Because how do you even approach this? So I just grouped them all by subject. And then I looked and I thought, well, you need to know this before you can understand this. And then you need to know this before you can understand that. So I just did that. And I'm telling you, I had divine help. There's no way to sort all that out myself, but I was super happy with how it turned out. And I've been told that it's very easy to follow. And that's what I made it for. Like, I'm not a credentialed historian. And that's important. I'm happy to tell everyone that because that's the point. I was a stay at home mom while my kids were at home. They're all grown and gone now, but I don't work outside the home. I'm barely credentialed. I have a bachelor's in French. I mean, that is so I don't have any credentials in history. And that's the point, is that any of us can read this now. The Joseph Smith papers are there. They've been made available to everyone, and you don't have to have it filtered through the historians who have access to the archives, and you don't. There's so much there. So it's wonderful. And the stuff that's there is just paradigm changing.
So let's go and share a few more different resources here so that we have your YouTube channel. And then you mentioned this one called Still Mormon. Talk a little bit about this channel.
For sure. Jeremy Hoop, who you may remember from the movie Charlie so many years ago, but he's awesome. Anyway, Jeremy's terrific. He does some deep dives into a certain subject, like you can see there, the Fanny Alger story, right? Like, did Joseph and Fanny, was there nonsense going on in the barn? So he'll focus on that. And he's had help producing his, so the lighting's good, much better than mine, and the transitions are great, and it looks really good, and it's entertaining. And I think having been an actor, he has that talent of speaking so calmly, smoothly, so that it's really enjoyable to listen to, and it's fun. And he gives you the receipts, he shows you the documentation, and it's just terrific. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, oh my goodness, so good. That Augusta Cobb that I mentioned, that Brigham Young married her. She left her husband to marry Brigham polygamously, and he's got some on her where we have her personal letters to Brigham Young, which shed so much light on the whole polygamy thing and whether Joseph had anything to do with it. So good.
Oh, okay. Well, that's another resource, Still Mormon on YouTube. And then our next one is tell us about Gwendolyn.
Gwendolyn's so good. Gwendolyn has a heart of gold, and she is so my favorite and the most popular, I think.
Oh, you know
Yeah,
what? I met Gwendolyn.
yeah,
I've met
yeah,
her.
at the polygamy conference. Yeah, she flew in from Austria to come to that. So this lady's serious. She's serious about her work. She's wonderful. And she has a different take. So my movie is all the receipts. I just want you to be able to see the documented history, the other side that you haven't seen before, so you could weigh it appropriately. What Gwendolyn did in her, it's episode 17 there, Our Best Story, is what the historians do. The historians have typically gone into the archives and gotten the information, seen the documentation, and then they sort of create a narrative. So they'll write their book and they'll say, Joseph did this, and then one day this happened, and he felt like this about it. And so you don't know how Joseph felt, obviously, just by reading a document, but you can make a good guess. So that's what historians usually do. Well, Gwendolyn is taking the other information that is usually not shared, incorporating that in and creating a much more plausible narrative about how Joseph felt and what actually happened and who was really behind this. And it's it's so good. All her episodes are good. They're so thoughtful. And she feels no need to throw out the church or throw out her, church membership or the things that she loves about the church. None of that needs to get thrown out just because we have this extra information. So she incorporates it into what we know and helps our understanding. It's fantastic.
Okay, great. And then let's talk about a couple more here. I think we got at least one more. Um, and oh, yes, this is the one that kind of sets you off on your journey right here.
Yeah, that
Tell us a
is.
little bit about Rob.
So I wish I knew more about Rob. He has an interview that he did with Mark Curtis that you can see on Hemlock Knots on the Hemlock Knots channel. And by the way, that's a big one that I didn't give you a link to, but that one you should bring up if you can too.
Yeah.
But Rob was on there and told a little bit of his personal journey, how he did this. He used to work for the church in the IT department, and he was working on the Gospel Library app when they were working on that back in the day. And he would see that some of the stuff he was coming across didn't match what we've been told by the historians. And so he started bringing these things to light. And long story short, he's done excellent videos with a lot of the he shows you the receipts, shows you the documentation. And for a while, his channel disappeared, like Michelle's, but without that ending video, even acknowledging it. They were just gone. And so many of us were just heartsick. What happened? And we didn't know. And, to this day, I don't know. I have no idea, was he coerced or was it family members? Who knows? So, but the good news is they're back. So they're all back. The bad news is he was excommunicated. And that's painful. And it's just like you feel that way. I just talked to two different historians this week that both are super, super disappointed to find that people would be excommunicated or be threatened with excommunication just for disagreeing with the history and for bringing up parts of our history and having questions about it. That's really disturbing. And for historians to say, wow, I wish we didn't do that, that's not okay, is something.
Well, I'm gonna hit the subscribe button there. So he's got another one today. And
Yay.
so very interesting stuff. And I'll try to pull out now Hemlock, they're a little bit better known, but I can look for them real quick here too. But
Yeah, good. He's
so
got
talk,
a Mark Curtis on Hemlock Knots. He set out a whole timeline. I mean, you can deep dive into there like crazy. He's just got timelines for so many things that happen so that you can see, wait, that doesn't make sense then, the story, because this happened first or that happened first. And it's terrific. Such a good resource. So I know Michelle relied heavily on that, and I got a lot of my material from that as well.
yeah, so we'll pull that up real quick so the audience can see that YouTube channel. Oh, here we go. Let me share it here. So yeah, and I've had some interactions with Hemlock Knots. I started they started getting into my feed when when I was covering the Who Killed Joseph Smith movie. And of course, that one of the first interviews that Justin did was on my channel right after the movie was released, and then I started seeing a lot of Hemlock Knots come up on my feed, and
Yeah.
I know they do a lot of stuff and live stuff and
And right. And Hemlock Knots is mostly Mark Curtis and his assistants. And what you're seeing right here, several of those well, those first two are from Rob Fotheringham. Those are a couple of his really good ones. But you
Okay.
see an interview with Whitney Horning
Yeah,
about
and we
her
wanted to
book,
talk about
Joseph.
Whitney
Yeah.
too. She's done
Uh-huh.
some great work. Maybe talk about a little bit about her.
She's fantastic. So that book, Joseph Smith Revealed, A Faithful Telling, is an alternate polygamy narrative because of, again, just she's got so many sources for the contemporaneous words of Joseph Smith and others, but that it just paints such a different picture. So that's a big, thick, wonderful book that's a deep dive and is an excellent, excellent resource. So you can get that on Amazon, and I mean, I highly recommend it. And she's also got one on Hiram. She's got other books. So fantastic work she does.
I just
And
he's
she
got
also came to the
oh,
polygamy conference.
he's got one of my videos in his playlist I see there too.
Oh,
So
cool. Cool. Okay.
just caught that. So all right, well, so I just again, folks, I'm the Switzerland of Mormonism. I just put the information out there. And if you're interested in this, check out these resources. I think it's really important that, this is a growing movement that has made its way into the ward level. Even my local ward here in Florida, there are big fans of Michelle Brady Stone, that have come to me and told me how big fans they are of her. And so I know that it is a real thing, and it's probably not going away anytime soon. What have you learned about like this journey you've been on for the last few years? Has this helped strengthen your faith?
100%. Absolutely. Because when you think, well, God said, cleave unto her and none else. But then he also said, but sometimes, you know how we read Jacob too? Well, sometimes I might command polygamy, though. I mean, it just is confusing. And so you just accept that God is confusing. And God is not a God of confusion. That's scriptural. And so it's amazing because this is so much more in character with God. It helps you understand Joseph Smith better. No, he wasn't sleeping with Emma's friends behind her back and still acting as a prophet of the Lord. That doesn't make sense to too many people, and you sort of have to get into a pretzel to justify that. And you can do it, but it makes a lot more sense this way. And you say, "Oh my goodness, Joseph was what he said he was. He didn't lie." There's a lot of anti-Mormons that have a lot of beefs with Joseph, which is fine. He wasn't perfect. He did a lot of things, but Michelle pointed out one of her episodes was just so terrific. She points out that it's the church narrative, the church historians who give you these Joseph was a liar glasses to put on by saying, well, he did one thing in public, but a different thing in private. He would say this in public, but he condemned polygamy, but then he practiced it in private. So you've got these, well, he's a liar, but it was for a good reason. But you've got these Joseph is a liar glasses. When you put those on and then you look at all these other issues, it's easy to say, well, then he's probably lying about these other things. So if you can take those off and realize that he absolutely told the truth about his feelings about polygamy, he absolutely was married to Emma and none else. And they had a wonderful marriage and they were not at odds. They did not butt heads. It's beautiful. So then you can look at everything else with a more unbiased eye. And I love that. And to it absolutely helps understand Heavenly Father more. We understand God so much more now. No, he doesn't say one thing here. There aren't secret commandments that you're not allowed to keep unless you have permission from your priesthood leaders. That's insane. I don't know any other commandments that are there, or doctrine, right, that is secret. Like you have to ask Brigham if you can have extra wives. I mean, either it's doctrine or it's not. Why would you have to ask permission to live doctrine if it's from God? So all these crazy ideas, they go away. And yes, faith in God is strengthened. It's so beautiful. I heard somebody say once, I mean, you've heard this before. The gospel of Jesus Christ is not a smorgasbord. You can't pick and choose which things to accept. Absolutely true. Total truth. The gospel of Jesus Christ, you have to have it all. But church teachings and historical teachings and the things that you might hear on a Sunday, That is exactly a smorgasbord. I cannot think of a better word. You have got to use your discernment and say, okay, these are greens, this is meat, this is a Twinkie. You absolutely should pick and choose and understand, and it should make sense. God is reasonable. He's a God of reason and truth. So it should make sense. So that's the glory of this. I have had so many people tell me, I feel so much closer to my Savior now that I understand this stuff. So Michelle, that's really the shame of her taking down her channel, is she gets so many messages, you guys, so many messages of people thanking her for helping them understand God better. There are people, there are women who were prepared to say, well, if polygamy is required for the celestial kingdom, which Brigham taught, and if they get a hold of that and understand that he taught that, they have literally said, God, if that's the case, I'm going to bow out. My husband can go ahead and be celestial, and I'll take a lower kingdom. Now, that is horrific. What a sad misunderstanding of God. It's so awful. So that goes away. It's just a beautiful thing. And Michelle gets, I started screen capturing all the kind things that people would say, thanking her for her work and how it helped their marriage, how it helped their testimony of Christ, and how it helped them stay in the church. Yeah, it's invaluable.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I've even tried. I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm still trying to think of anybody that I've personally spoken to that left the church because of Michelle's channel. I actually didn't think of that before, but then I realized, like, yeah, there have people that have left the church that have watched Michelle's channel, but typically they were already kind of on their way out, and as well. So I can't really think of too many instances where people actually left the channel, and I think that the left the church. And I think that's been one of the key things that the critics have been saying about Michelle, is that she's causing people to leave the church. And so I don't know if that is or not happening, but in my personal experience, I haven't seen it. Just putting that out there. It's just one person's opinion. Karen, I just wanted to ask you, is there anything, before we wrap this up, are there any other misconceptions about Michelle that you maybe want to clear up? I know that, like, for instance, I wanted to get out there that no, Michelle was not in cahoots with another person to repost her videos on another channel. Is there any other misconceptions out there that have been whirling around about Michelle since this whole story happened on Sunday?
Undoubtedly. I mean, it's really almost everything's conjecture, right? Just because she hasn't come out and said things. All I can say is yes, pressure was put on her, obviously. I mean, I think that's obvious. I was surprised to see some people say, well, I guess maybe she just decided not to. Like, no, she didn't just do an about face. There was pressure, and she
This
had
pressure.
to choose, Um, here's one thing that I've been trying to help people who are supporters of her, who are really confused or disappointed. Um, you could look at Ammon in the Book of Mormon. I love, Stephen, that you appreciate the Book of Mormon. I think that is the coolest thing ever. And it just shows that you have an honest heart, that you're like, okay, truth wherever I find it. So there's a story of Ammon who goes among the enemy. He's a Nephite, and he goes among the Lamanites, who are murderously full of hatred for the Nephites. They hate them. So Ammon and his brothers decide to go on a mission to the Lamanites. So the way Ammon handles it is he goes over there and he says, hey, king of the Lamanites, King Lamoni, I'm going to be your servant. I volunteer to be your servant. I'm going to help you out, and just what do you want me to do? Just this very kind, amazing bridge building man. And you could have looked at him and said, are you insane right now? What are you caving? What are you going to be, that guy's servant and do his bidding? Are you nuts? uh, Better to kill him. And yet he had great success. He's one of the most successful missionaries in the entire book. Thousands and thousands of people he helped learn the gospel because he was among them and he was building bridges with them. Did he really think he ought to serve the Lamanite king, who was this murderous man? Probably not, right? But he did what he thought was best in order to have relationships with people who didn't think like him and to help them see the gospel. It's a beautiful story. And so that's what I see. This isn't Michelle's words, but this is my words. I understand that she would like to preserve her membership, and that she has contact with so many people who need her message, that she, that's a priority. So I get it. It's not what I would do, and it's not what a lot of people would do, but it's what she felt to do. So that's fine. And it's great. There's so many ways to approach sharing truth. So we have to be respectful of our individual ways we share truth. I'm in my ward yakking. I talk about it constantly. I've talked to well over half the ward. And I would say probably close to a quarter of the active members in my ward have watched my video. And they're so happy about it. So it's like, that's awesome. So we all have our different ways of sharing, but I have peeps, I have a community. I don't have church friends, I have friends.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if I'm ever escorted out, it won't change a thing. I'm still going because I love them. I love being there. I love contributing. I won't have a calling, whatever, like slight differences, but no major things would change.
Well, and also there's been speculation going around that Michelle has been or will be excommunicated. Do you have anything that you can say to that you're comfortable saying today?
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for, and I don't know, it's
Understood.
ridiculous that it's a sensitive topic. Like, if it's truth, we ought to be able to say it, right? Like, we ought to be able to say exactly what's happened, in fact, not just the truth of Joseph, but the truth of what's going on with Michelle. But if she's not real comfortable talking about it, then I'm not going to either. But I mean, yes, pressure was put on her. And hopefully people, I don't know if everyone knows this, but in the church, you are not excommunicated from on high. You are excommunicated by local leaders. So it's their decision. So there's also area authorities and this sort of thing. So whether or not her local leaders are being pressured by someone else is pure speculation. We don't know. And so that I can't speak to. So I don't know where the pressure's coming from ultimately, but for her, it's a local issue always.
Okay.
So
All right. Thank you.
and again, they're doing what they think is best, and I get that. So with any luck, maybe they'll watch it, and their hearts will soften a little. I don't know. So we just share as best we can, and let me say this real quick. I keep yapping. I hope that's okay, Stephen.
Okay, that's
But
fine.
I don't shove any of this down anyone's throat. If I do talk to someone in the ward, and they seem a little skidded or like they're nervous about it, I'm never like, guess what? It was Brigham. I'm never on the DL. I'm just like, guess what? Joseph always preached against polygamy. It's the best thing ever. And they go, how do you know that? And I show them. But if it makes them uncomfortable, I crank it back. I don't, it's for them. It's not for me. I do not need anyone to come to my way of thinking. I don't care. So that's why it's so much easier for me to share this. I love the people in my ward. I love each one of them, and I don't want to stress them out. So if it's happy news for them, they're going to watch it and be happy. If it's not, that's fine. Just continue on. Like I say, I went for decades thinking Joseph was, and I'm all right.
All right. Well, let's go back just real quick. Karen, you have your YouTube channel. We'll have a link there. We have the Still Mormon channel. We have Gwendolyn Wyne's channel and Rob Fotheringham. Is that how you say it? Okay.
Fotheringham. Yep.
Fotheringham. Okay, Fotheringham. Okay. And I'm his newest subscriber. And then of course we have Hemlock Knots. These are great resources, and there are many others out there. Of course, we don't even always think about this, but really one of the places that has been the birthplace of a lot of this was, of course, with the RLDS. And there are many people in the Independence, Missouri area that are maybe no longer affiliated with the Community of Christ, but are maybe independent restorationists that also still take the position that was the church's position until the 1980s, that Joseph Smith did not practice polygamy. And there are many resources out there as well, as like Price Publishing would be one example. And so we got to
So
keep in
good.
mind that these are not the only people in the restoration, are not just Utah, but there's a lot of different branches of the restoration. And there are some that have a pretty strong position, and many individuals and churches that also believe that Joseph did not practice polygamy as well.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I just forgot to mention that I have a website that goes along with my videos, so that's where all the links to all the documentation, because I do not like to say, just believe me. So
All
all
right.
the all the documentation that I cite in the video is available at josephtoldthetruth.org.
Okay.
And at that same site, there's a place for further information, and lots of researchers are listed there, not just kind of the big ones that I mentioned, but there's lots of smaller channels that are doing such good work, really good work.
Great,
So
great. Well,
thank you so much.
yeah, thank you, Karen. Was there any final words you want to share with the audience?
No, just share this in love,
Okay.
like on both sides. I mean, of course, it's sad to see. Um, it's so sad to see people that are, just angry at Michelle, angry at this whole idea that Joseph might not have been a polygamist. I don't know why it's angering for them, but for whatever reason it is, and so they sometimes get angry. Obviously, I would ask them to try not to be angry and just try to look at it with an open mind and see if there is something that they might learn. But it pains my heart far, far more to see people on my side, if you want to call it, people that believe that Joseph was true to Emma, to see them be angry. That's what breaks my heart, because there's just no reason for that. We should love our fellow man. The first and great commandment is not to learn about Joseph Smith's polygamy. It's to love God. And the second is like, and love your neighbor as well. So as yourself. And so those are, everything hinges on that. So if we genuinely love people, that will come out as we talk to them naturally. We don't have to try to be nice. It will come out nicely because we do love them. So that would be my message.
Great. Well, really appreciate you coming on the program today. We are finishing taping this at 6:13 p.m. Central Time, which is Eastern Time, which is usually by now I have the episode released, but we wanted to get this out today. Hopefully, I'll be able to get everything set up and get the thumbnail ready, and we will get this released sometime, hopefully today on May 8th, 2025. This is Michelle Brady Stone's producer. And we'll see what the next chapter looks like, folks. I don't think this story is over yet. And we'll continue this dialogue and this journey. And Karen, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
So we'll have links in the description to everything that we talked about today, as well as, and make sure you send me your link to your website, okay, on my phone, and then I can make sure that I get the right one in there. And also, we have links in the description for those of you who'd like to financially support the channel. Could not do it without you. We do really greatly appreciate it. And remember, the most important thing is this: all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.